When it comes to pocket lights, I'm sure you guys have one or two or maybe even 10 of these things lying around, but what makes this one in particular any different and stand out amongst the rest? Well, I'll tell you guys that in a moment, but first of all, this light was provided to me by Zhiyun for review. They didn't pay me, no money was exchanged hands, so this video is still my own personal thoughts and opinions. Let's first start off with what's inside the box. So you first get the manual, a little carrying pouch, a diffuser, a grid, which is very nice, a set of barn doors, a USB-C to USB-C cable, the light itself, and most important of all, this silica gel. The cool thing about this light is that it actually comes with this, it's almost like a cage that's already pre-installed. To get it off, you have to unlatch this button on the side and pull the door on the back off, and then you can just slide the entire light off like so. And this light on its own is actually a lot smaller than what you kind of expect, because a lot of times when you see the photos of this light, it actually has the cage installed. So without it, it's pretty tiny. This light on its own measures about 3 inches by 3 inches and 1 3/8 of an inch deep. So it's a really tiny light that you can fit into small and tight spaces, but the only issue with this light on its own is that there's really no attachment points on any of the sides or the back, so you can't really put this on a light stand or clamp it to anything. The only thing you can really do is just kind of lean it against the wall or lean it on something or set it down flat on its bottom. The case itself is plastic, but it's like this really sturdy reinforced plastic, so it's actually very rigid and it feels very durable. I don't think it's gonna break on you very easily unless you like chuck it across the room. The cool thing about this is that it gives you attachment points. So you can see that on the top and on the two sides, you get 3 female cold shoe attachments, and on the bottom you get a male cold shoe attachment with a 1/4-20. If you have several of these lights, you can actually kind of like daisy chain them together to create a large light grid, which is pretty cool. And I believe you can also control all of them using the Zhiyun app called ZY Vega or ZY Vega. So on the front you have 4 magnets to attach your accessories, and on the back you actually have this door that secures the light. When you open it up, on the inside of it you have these 2 rubber feet so that when you put the light in there and close the door, it's not going to scratch the back side of your light. And on the outside of this door you actually have a strip right here that's actually a magnet, so you can use that to connect to any sort of metal surfaces. Now that in itself is not a new feature. A lot of these pocket lights have this magnetic back feature, but the cool thing about this one is that they put a little rubber strip on this back side here. So when you are attaching this to any sort of surfaces, you're not going to scratch your light, and you're also not going to scratch that metal surface as well. That is a nice design touch right there. Okay, so let's go over the M20C in a little bit more detail. So one thing I didn't mention earlier was on the top here, you actually have a USB-C port. This is where you plug the light in to charge. On the back, you have a little display in the middle here. This little display, even though it's small, is actually very legible. It's very sharp and it's very easy to read, so that's good. On the left side, you have a dial that is clicky. The one on the right, this one is a non-clicky button, and it's very smooth to turn. This is impressively smooth to turn. Like, this is where your money is going right here. This is what you're paying for, essentially. So in order to turn this on, it's very simple. It's also a little bit interesting, because typically these pocket lights, you hold down the button to turn it on. But for this one, you need to do 2 clicks. First click is a short click, second click is a long hold. The first screen we have is the CCT screen. This is where we typically live most of the time. The left dial moves you to the next setting, which is the color temperature. The next one here is actually pretty interesting, because a lot of these pocket lights don't really give you this control, but this one actually does. So this lets you not only control the temperature of the light, but also this one right here is the green and magenta shift. So if your light is slightly green or slightly magenta, you can actually shift the setting right here to correct for that. So that's pretty cool. So if we click this left button here, it actually takes us to the next screen. If we double click it, it brings us back to the previous screen. So if we click it right now, it takes us to the next mode, and this is the HSI mode. So here you can adjust the intensity of it, you can adjust the hue of it, and also the saturation of the light. The next screen takes us to the RGB screen. This one, again, you can adjust the red, green, and blue channels independently. The next screen is the effects screen. Now, I'm not going to go over all of the effects, but I kind of want to point out the different settings that you have in this screen. It's pretty cool. So first off, you can choose your different effects. The cool thing is that you can also not only adjust the intensity, you can also adjust the speed of it. So essentially, if you want this flashing SOS light to flash faster, you can dial the speed up, and it will just speed up the frequency of the flash, or you can slow it down. And it also lets you adjust the color temperature of the effect as well. So that's something that you don't often see on other lights that has effects on it, because typically these effects are pre-programmed, preset to a certain temperature to give you that look, right? But now you can actually adjust the temperature of it. So essentially you can make your candle effect look like daylight for whatever reason. This one effect I do want to show you though. This one is the, I don't know if you can see that. This one is called the explosion effect. Okay, so the next screen is the music effect. This is pretty interesting because this actually lets you basically allow the light to react to the different sounds that it can hear. So I'm not sure if there's a mic in here or whatnot, but as you can see here, as I am talking like a robot for some reason, you can see it reacting to my voice. Yeah, it's pretty cool. I mean, I guess you can set this light up in a party, maybe. And last but not least, we have the menu screen, or essentially the settings screen. So I'm not going to read out the specs to you. Feel free to pause the video here if you want to take a closer look at them. But here are the specs of the Zhiyun M20C RGB light. In terms of battery life, I didn't actually like set this somewhere to let it just run and see how long the runtime is. But what I did was I actually used this on a shoot recently. So consider this a real world test. From what I recall, it lasted about 3 to 4 hours, give or take. So after that, I had to go and charge it again before we can use it. So, you know, keep that in mind. If you're actually gonna be using this on a shoot, be prepared to actually have to go and charge it mid-shoot because it's definitely not gonna last you all day on one charge. So this light also, oh, that is bright, holy smokes. This light also has a fan on the back of it for dissipating heat, and it usually kicks in at about 45 seconds after running the light at full power. My mic is currently right here. I'm gonna put it next to the mic and you can hear what it sounds like. So with the fan on the back, you also kind of have to be more aware of how you set this light. So you don't want to set it in the sense where it's like facing up like this, because that's gonna basically just block the fan from really, you know, doing much at all. So it might overheat and might cause damage to the light. I'm not exactly sure if it will or not, but that's something that you should be aware of when setting this light in any sort of tight spaces. So with these accessories here, they're actually held on by these 4 magnets in the corner here. And they're very strong magnets. Basically, you can literally just pick them up like so, and they are held on very tightly. As you can see, it doesn't fall off. It's very secure. But the one thing I do want to note about these is that you have to kind of put them in a very specific order. The correct order to put them in is essentially you have your light, and then you have your diffuser panel, and then afterwards you have your grid, and then afterwards you have your set of barn doors. That's the proper way to put it on if you want to use all of your modifiers. If you don't want to use all of them, that's where it gets a little bit confusing sometimes. So if you want to use the light without the diffuser panel, just the grid and the barn door, perfectly fine. It clicks on perfectly. If you want to use it with just the grid and also the diffuser panel, that's fine as well. But it's the moment when you want to use it with the diffuser panel and the barn door and not the grid. That's where it becomes a little bit of a problem. So you see on the bottom of this barn door here, you can see that there's actually a little bit of a lip that sticks up from the bottom here. The thing with that is that it connects with the grid perfectly fine. It connects with the light itself perfectly fine, because both of these have a little bit of a recessed edge on here. But the moment you want to put it on the diffuser, this diffuser is perfectly flat. So this doesn't actually connect to this very well. There's a little bit of a gap. I don't know if you can see that, but there's a little bit of a space between the diffuser panel and the barn door itself. So the magnets aren't exactly touching each other, which means that it kind of moves around a little bit and it's not a very secure fit, and you can just push it off like so. Another thing to note is that this might be a little bit nitpicky, but when you actually have this light on and you have all of your modifiers attached to it, you can see on the side of the light, there's a strip of light going on there. And what that is actually the edge of the diffuser panel where the light is bleeding through. And I mean, it looks really cool. I mean, like you have this sort of like really futuristic kind of a looking light here going on. But the problem with that is that it kind of defeats the point of the barn doors, right? Because the point of the barn doors is to shield the sides of your light to prevent anything from spilling to the sides. But when you also have the diffuser panel installed, light is bleeding through the edge of it anyway. So it's like, you know, what's the point of this, right? This is what the light looks like when it's shining on a subject without any modifiers. And this is what it looks like with the diffuser panel installed. And next we have the grid installed. And finally, this is with the barn doors installed, controlling the spill of the light. Now currently I have the Zhiyun M20C set up right over here. Oh my god, I looked into it. I currently have it set up on my left here as my key light. I have a kicker on the back here. It's not really doing too much, I guess, but I mean, I guess I can turn it off to give you guys the full experience, right? There you go. So right now I'm only being lit by this Zhiyun M20C, this key light right here, and the intensity currently is set to 90%. It is very bright. It's 90% and the fan is spinning like crazy. I mean, I can hear it from here. My mic is set up down here, so if you do hear some fan noise, it's because it's sort of within the same vicinity as where the light is. So this is a very bright light, but I still want you guys to have realistic expectations. It's very bright, but it's not going to be bright enough to light up a, like a studio space or a large room, for example. It's still in the end a 20-watt pocket light. And speaking of lighting up faces, there's a caveat to that I want to touch on as well. So currently I have this light lighting up my face right now, and as you can see, there's a lot of contrast, there's a lot of shadows being cast on my face, because in the end, this is still a pocket light, and pocket lights are designed to be small. And when you have a small light, you essentially have a point source light. It's almost like a spotlight in a sense. And typically that isn't the most flattering type of light to light up a face with. There's a reason why on film sets you see people using these massive scrims to diffuse light, and it's because the most pleasing light on the face is a large light. You want to get your light source as large as possible to, have a more flattering, more pleasing look on the face. And the reason why I want to touch on that is because this light comes with a lot of great modifiers like diffuser panels and grids and whatnot. I just want you guys to know that just because it has a diffuser panel doesn't mean that it's enough to soften the light to the point where it can give you a flattering shot of a face. But if you're purchasing this light, I still recommend you get the combo pack with the modifiers included, because as I mentioned before, the thing that makes this light unique is the fact that it allows you to attach modifiers to it. A lot of pocket lights out there don't allow this, so the fact that this does and it comes included makes this a huge win. Just because I mentioned earlier that the modifiers aren't the best for faces doesn't mean that they're useless, right? The modifiers are still a great option for you to light up, certain areas like backgrounds, for example, or accent areas or effects. Okay, so the light died on me, so I'm gonna go back to my original key light right here. There you go, and also turn my kicker back on. There you go. Recently I used this light in a shoot, and as I mentioned before, I think this light, really works best as an accent light, as a background light, or effects light. I think that's where this light really shines. So I primarily use it in two scenarios. First of all, I used it as an effects light. I turned the faulty bulb effect on and I put it inside of a lampshade, and it really set the tone and the mood of the scene, because we were shooting this sort of thriller, murder kind of a scene, and with that faulty bulb in the background, it really did give the whole scene that atmosphere we were looking for. In addition to that, I also used this light as a fill light to add a little bit of lift to the actress's face, replicating the look of the window light in this room. In this scenario, I wasn't exactly too concerned with the light being too harsh on her face, since it wasn't exactly quite strong enough to overpower the ambient light in the room anyways. All in all, I think this is a fantastic light to add to your kit. It is light, it is small, you can mount it to a lot of different tight spaces. You can modify it in ways that other pocket lights won't allow you to. There's a lot of different lighting options, there's a lot of really cool effects, and honestly the thing that I really like the most is that you can actually dial in and customize the effect to the way you actually like it. Downsides would be the fact that light leaks through the sides of the edges of this diffuser panel right here. If you were to mount this on top of your camera with a microphone, you'll probably get a little bit of fan noise. And last but not least, if you do intend to use this on a shoot, expect to kind of have to charge this mid-shoot, because if you're going to be using this light constantly, it'll probably not last you through the entire day. And that's my thoughts on the Zhiyun M20C RGB light. If you guys are interested in picking this up, feel free to use my affiliated links below to help the channel out just a little bit. And as always, if you guys agree with me, disagree with me, whatever the case might be, let me know why in the comments below. Bye!